So let's imagine we have a raster, right? And hopefully after the last building our rasters, this makes a little bit more sense, right? We have a raster somewhere on the world with some values. Now let's imagine that there's another raster sitting underneath that. They're the exact same resolution, the same size, they're the same starting lower left corner starting point, the same, same grid size, but they have different values. So what if we want to compare those two? What if we want to add them? We'd use a tool called raster calculator. That tool would say, look at every pixel and add the values at each pixel to get these values right here. So we'd say, okay, this one has a value of 4 right here. This one has a value of 1 right here. So the output is going to be a value of 5. So it performs very simple. Well, it can get complicated, but in general, very simple math on a stack of rasters that are sitting on top of each other. So that could be addition. It could be subtraction, right? We could subtract one raster from another to get an output that went into the negative and positive space. It could be multiplication. It could be division. It could be more complicated mathematical operations as well. So that's raster calculator. This is the tool we're going to use to say, I've got ocean temperature in 2020. I've got ocean temperature in 1985. Let's subtract them and see what the difference is between them. So we can only really see so much by just turning one layer off and on and looking at them side by side. We can obviously see a color difference, but it's not until we actually do some math on this using our raster calculator that we can actually identify areas that have increased and areas that have decreased. So I'm going to run that right now. So I'm going to select my processing toolbox, which hopefully you all set up right when you started QGIS. If you don't have your processing toolbox here, you can right-click on the toolbar up here, and it's one of your panels, this processing toolbox panel. You can just check that on right there. So I'm going to search for raster calculator. Oop, did I spell that right? Raster calculator. I have it in my recently used because I've been using it for class, but you can also find it in raster analysis here. Double click on that to open up the tool. Okay, so what's going on here is we've got a help window on the right side here, which is always useful in our tools. Every tool will have a help window. Some of them will be more useful than others. Right up here, we've got our layers. So these are our raster layers that we can do math on. And we have operators, addition, subtraction, division, multiplication, square root, etc. So we can perform mathematical transformations on our data. So I want to double click on August 2020. I want to take that and then do a little minus sign with a single click and double click on 85. So I'm saying, okay, take 2020 and subtract the raster values from 1985 there. So that will get values that from the output of this that are positive will be places where ocean temperature has increased. Values that are negative will be places where ocean temperature has decreased. All right, so I need to add this thing right here on this next step. This is the only other required piece. I need to add a reference layer. And so we want to check one of the two input layers that we're using for that reference layer. I'm going to click OK. And what doing that does is it tells the computer, use the same cell size resolution from one of these layers, and then use the same CRS as one of those layers, the Robinson projection that they're in, for the output. You can click Run now, and it would save the analysis as a temporary file. But we don't want to do that. We want to make sure we save the results of our analysis. So I'm going to go over to my little 3 dots over here where you always click to get more information in QGIS. I'm going to click this. And rather than save to a temporary file, I'm going to choose Save to File. And I'm saving it in my class 9420 folder. Great. Just always double check to make sure you're saving it where you want to be saving it. And I'm going to call this SST diff 2085 without the parentheses. So difference in sea surface temperature between 2020 and 1985. And I'm going to put a .tif just to double check, make sure that it's getting saved as a .tif file. I'm going to click Save. And then I'm click run. And it should run very quickly. And I'll bring it up to the top here. So again, the default is grayscale, right? So we need to go to layer styling for this. And we want to choose single band pseudo color. And we want to invert our color ramp so that blue is low and red is high.